Let's talk some start-sit questions next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Dave Richard. And Dave, Thursday night, we already know we're missing Saquon Barkley. I think it's pretty easy to not start Matt Breida or Gary Brightwell unless you're absolutely desperate against the 49ers, right?
100%. We're not even sure how much those guys are going to play. It's a tough matchup. I don't care what Kyron Williams did last week.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mess for the Giants all the way around. And their offensive line still isn't at full strength.
Yeah, missing their starting left guard and left tackle for this game. They've both been ruled out as well. Might just be a stay away from everyone on the Giants situation. On the other side of that game, we do have Brandon Ayuk, who's questionable after being limited with a shoulder injury. He looked pretty banged up after that injury in week 2, kept playing through it, but was slow to get up multiple times, only played 53% of the snaps. Given that this should be a game the 49ers can win pretty easily, are you starting Brandon Ayuk if he's active?
I would be nervous to do so. And the problem with Brandon Ayuk is what you said. The 49ers could win this game without him. There's always the chance that the Giants make it competitive and maybe the 49ers say, all right, well, we need you, Brandon. Go out there and make a couple plays. Run a couple of slants. That's what he's typically good at doing. I would not feel good starting Brandon Ayuk. Hopefully the 49ers make that decision for us.
Yeah, he's more like a wide receiver 3 for me, whereas he'd be a top 20 guy under normal circumstances. Let's move on to Jerome Ford. The Browns did sign Kareem Hunt as expected on Wednesday. And obviously, given his experience in Kevin Stefanski's offense, he might not need much time to get ready. The question is more, is he physically ready? But where are you ranking Jerome Ford for week 2 or week 3? Is he a start?
I'm going to rank him high for week 2, and I'm also going to rank him as a start, top 24 running back in week number 3. And look, the Titans' run defense, it's impressive. They've got some big boys up front. But I wonder if they're a little suspect on the edges, and Jerome Ford's a pretty good pass catcher, and he's a pretty good pass blocker. So I think he could lean into those passing down reps really quickly and still get a lot of rushing down work on top of it. You saw the speed on Monday night. You know that he's got the potential for breakaway runs. I'd start him. I wouldn't have huge expectations, but I think he can finish as a top 20-ish type of running back, especially in PPR.
Let's talk about another running back for week 3. Gus Edwards, kind of all coming together for Gus Edwards right now. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins out for the season, but we learned on Wednesday afternoon Justice Hill is dealing with a toe injury, not expected to be a long-term issue, but doesn't sound like he'll play in week 3. However, Gus Edwards, we know who he is. He typically doesn't get anything in the passing game. He's very rarely getting, 20 carries. Where are you ranking him? Is he a start? And would you start him over Jerome Ford and Zach Moss, to name 2?
I'd put him right in between those guys. I'm not a big fan of Zach Moss this week. I don't like the matchup against Baltimore, so I'm going to sit Zach Moss. I think Gus Edwards is in that flex range, maybe not even top 24. He should be the main guy for Baltimore, but we thought he'd be the main guy for Baltimore after week 1. And Justice Hill gives them more speed.
Yeah.
It won't just come down to that. But if you go back and you watch those running backs play, Gus was the smoother runner. He had the better vision. And he's the one that I think can handle a large amount of reps, certainly more so than Melvin Gordon. I don't know if there's anybody else that the Ravens have who can step in there.
Yeah, they signed Kenyon Drake to the practice squad, but we saw him in this offense last year.
Right, and how did he do in that offense? It was not pretty.
Yeah.
I'd go with Gus. Maybe he does make the cut as a top 24 running back. Maybe in non-PPR he does because the workload will be there. I will say this Colts run defense, it's good. I think that they are very, very strong up front, and they will make it harder on Gus Edwards than you might have initially thought before the season started.
All right, let's go with one really tough one because as of Wednesday, we definitely don't know if Joe Burrow is going to play because the Bengals haven't practiced for week 3 yet. They won't have their first practice on until Thursday. We won't know. I mean, it's possible we don't know if Joe Burrow is playing until 7:00 on Monday night. They play the 8:15 game, so that's literally the last possible one if he's a game time decision. Would you start T. Higgins if we don't know if Joe Burrow's playing?
I'd lean toward it because what Cincinnati would do if they don't have Joe Burrow is ask Jake Browning to just not mess up. throw simple passes, probably not try a lot of deep shots, but I bet he tries a couple. And let's face it, has Joe Burrow thrown the ball well enough in the first 2 games of the year to make you think that what he's doing is that much worse than what Jake Browning can do? And I know that sounds so silly, but he's getting rid of the ball quickly. He's not challenging downfield as much. Maybe he knocked the rust off a little bit in the second half of week 2. And that's really when T. Higgins came alive. We're still waiting for Jamar Chase to come alive. I think Higgins can be okay even with Jake Browning. So if you're making a decision on him or Jamar Chase, I don't think it's so reliant on Joe Burrow being there for him in the matchup against the Rams, who I still don't think their defense is as good as they've looked over the first 2 weeks of the season.
All right, that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll be back tomorrow to recap Thursday Night Football and talk more start sits. We'll see you then.